influential men in American automobile design.
A lot of people share the spotlight, but don't kid yourself. Bill Mitchell was the driving force.
Everybody will light up when you say Zorar has done talking.
They were big, they were loud, and they were fast.
See the USA in your Chevrolet. America is asking you to come. Drive your Chevrolet.
Our first inductee into the 2012 National Corvette Hall of Fame could justifiably be placed in any of the three categories. Gary Claudio is a GM employee, an integral part of the Corvette race team, and an avid Corvette enthusiast.
He's loved these cars since he was a kid. He's been intimately involved with everything from racing to sales to going to car shows. He lives and breathes this car.
And I took an instant liking to Gary. There's just something about Gary that was very real and human, and maybe it's because he had a New York accent and is a former cop, but he liked to refer to all of the rest of us as criminals, and I think he still does.
One of the strongest attributes that Gary brought to the party was, number one, his ability to identify with people. In any business, you can have the greatest product. If you don't have the people, you're not going to succeed. And Gary was one of those people who could make things happen. He got it. He knew what people liked to see. He knew what they wanted. He knew what they would gravitate to. And he was able, and working in conjunction with us, to help us form and create our program that would be appreciated by the fan and by the customer.
He was very instrumental in getting that whole C5R Corvette racing program off the ground back in 1999 when the car first debuted at the 24 Hours of Daytona. And if you look at the importance of Corvette racing today in terms of attracting younger buyers to Corvette and really establishing Corvette's reputation around the world, you know, on racetracks, on neutral ground, where you can really measure your performance against your competitions. I think I can't emphasize enough how important Corvette racing is.
Gary's ability to know and understand what the customer wanted was really fundamental to the success of the program, because it helped us create that identity and create that bond between the race team and the customer.
When you're enthusiasts like I am and like you guys are, it's important to know that the people in the company are just as enthusiastic as you are.
Gary's one of those guys, when he tells you something, that he's going to do something, he does it. You know, no ifs, ands, or buts. He makes it happen.
Our very first Le Mans, we knew going to Le Mans was going to be a challenge because the French had a predisposition to not liking the Corvette, and certainly a predisposition to not particularly showing favor to Americans in general. And so Gary came up with a plan to help endear ourselves to the French. When you're done going through the scrutineering process, your cars are put in position and the official photograph is taken. We're all done with scrutineering. Unbeknownst to the photographers, when they ceased the session, I said, time out, we're not done. Gary had gone out and gotten every team member a beret and a fake mustache. And so at that moment in time when they thought they were done with us, per Gary's plan, we let them know we weren't done with them. Took our hats off, pulled out the berets, put on the berets and the fake mustaches, and stood there. I want to tell you, for the first time in Le Mans history, the photographers and the fans broke out in applause. The photographers were rolling in laughter. They couldn't snap photos fast enough of what they had just seen. From that moment forward, that little act, that little creative act that Gary had put together, forever changed the way the French people viewed us and viewed Corvette. And now we have endeared ourselves to them. After 12 years of being there, we are their favorite team.
I was fortunate enough to be able to drive the pace car at Indianapolis, thanks to Gary. In fact, Gary called me up and said, hey, you want to drive the pace car in Indy? I said, well, I don't know, what's it going to cost me? He goes, it doesn't cost you anything. I said, really? I don't have to pay to do that? I would love to do that. So that was a great thrill. And then I got to drive the Corvette pace car again in Indy and Daytona as well. So that was a real thrill.
The track at Le Mans has several corners named for brand competitors like Ford and Porsche. So Gary sought to have a corner named for our favorite car. But even for Gary, everything has a price. And so a bit of barter took place, or was necessary.
And Gary thought it would be great if we would trade, and we essentially traded a Cadillac LMP car for their museum at the same time that we got Corvette Corner named after our proud namesake, Chevrolet Corvette. So once again, one of the many, many things that Gary brought to the party under the table that was so meaningful and will forever be remembered in history, and forever those corners will be Corvette Corner. So,
you know, there are a lot of things that Gary did to kind of help put the Corvette on the map. You know, after 9/11, he was instrumental in getting the, you know, the NYPD and New York Fire Department logos on the Corvette racing cars, for example. He was instrumental in making sure that the Corvette was the pace car for Le Mans races. He was the guy behind the plan to take the whole Corvette racing team over to the Middle East and visit some of our troops.
We were there as part of that. And the looks on those young men and women's faces when they saw someone from home, when they saw something as iconic as Corvette, had huge meaning for them and huge meaning to us as a team. Gary had the ability to think that stuff up. He had the ability then to carry it through. He had a passion for it, and he could convey that passion to people.
But Gary was always looking for ways to get things like that done, and, you know, create opportunities to help the museum or to help charities or kids or whatever. And you know, that's why I think he is so deserving of this honor. He's enormously caring and a guy with a real heart of gold.
With Chevrolet and Gary Claudio, he's a guy you can go right to him, you pick up the phone, and you can find out what you need to know about your car, whether it's a warranty problem, whatever it might be. So that's the great thing about having someone like Gary in the Corvette family, because to me, he is Corvette.
When we look down the banners and the lists of people who have been inducted into the Corvette Hall of Fame, each one of them obviously has made their mark. But I can tell you in my association with Corvette, if there's any individual that deserves to be part of this Corvette Hall of Fame, it's Gary Claudio, because he was the man who truly understood how to get from the car to the people. He knew how to bridge that, and he bridged it in a way that was so creative, had never been done before, and so meaningful. All those things that he put in place are still active and meaningful today. They are timeless. They will never go away. He has forever etched Corvette and Corvette Racing with his name.
Ladies and gentlemen, our first inductee into the 2012 National Corvette Hall of Fame, Gary Claudio.